Hey, welcome to Section 5. So we finished with our contract development, our tests, and our UI work for our application. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the components we use to run it locally. Now you've seen most of these pieces already, and in this video, we're going to see how they all tie together, as well as take a peek under the hood so you know how it works. It takes multiple components to make our decentralized app work. We talked about these components in Section 1. We'll need Ganache running because that provides our Ethereum test network. We also need a server hosting our React application. And while that may sound like a daunting task, it's really as easy as opening the terminal prompt in the application directory and typing npm start. With our server running, we can use a supported browser such as Chrome, Firefox, or Brave with MetaMask installed to navigate our website. We've already talked about Ganache quite a bit, so I'm not going to beat you up on this any further except to say, make sure you have Ganache running. Your application depends on it. We haven't talked about launching our application a lot though. I briefly mentioned that we start it by typing npm start, and if you're familiar with Node applications, that makes perfect sense. If you're not, you may be a little confused, so let me explain what's going on there. There's a file in the code you downloaded for this application called package.json, and it looks like this. Inside, you'll find some basic things like application name, version, and description, and then we have this scripts block. Each of the keys listed here is a command we can use with npm, the Node package manager. This means typing npm build will execute this command, npm start will execute this command, and npm test will execute this command. There's no reason at all you couldn't type this command into your terminal directly, but typing npm start is much shorter, and it's a common convention in Node apps so that when encountering a new app, you know that you can start it with the npm start command, regardless of what the actual steps are over here. We also have this dev dependencies block. When Node.js runs, it has an environment variable called node-env. If that environment variable is set to anything other than the word production, the packages listed here are installed when you run npm install. Typical packages listed here are the things required to execute your tests and linters, tasks that you wouldn't normally do on a production server. Which takes us to the next section, dependencies. The packages listed here are installed regardless of the environment. Things like React, which is required because this is a React app. Finally, we need our browser with the MetaMask plugin installed. I'm going to show you on Chrome, but you're welcome to use any supported browser. And now we're ready to jump over to our terminal session and we'll get this party started. So the first thing we need is our Ganache application running, so I'll start that up. I'm going to switch over to my terminal into the application directory where I've downloaded the code, and I'm going to type npm install, which is going to install the required packages for my Node application. Now I just started Ganache, which means I have a brand new network where my contracts haven't been deployed, so I need to deploy those, and I'll do that by compiling them first with the truffle compile command, and then migrate them to my Ganache installation with the truffle migrate command. And now we can start our application, our web UI, with the npm start command. When that starts, it's going to do a little bit of initialization. It's going to bind to our localhost port. And then the phrase that we're looking for here is that Webpack built, meaning that Webpack has compiled our application bundle and it's ready to download, which we can do by opening a browser and going to localhost on port 3000. We can connect MetaMask to our local Ganache installation by copying the mnemonic from Ganache, restoring from a seed phrase in MetaMask, pasting that in, and providing a password. Then switching over to HTTP 127.0.0.1 on port 7545. And we've already got an item for sale on our marketplace, so we can buy that. Review our transaction for 1 Ether with the gas limit and gas price, submit that. We've got our transaction ID that automatically pops up, and in just a few seconds, it pops over to the sold status. Well, as you interact with your contract during the development phase, you're going to find that a lot of the work you need to do requires an item in the marketplace you can work with. So every time you start your application or redeploy your contracts, you can use the add button and add an item, but that's going to get pretty tiresome after a while. So let me ask you this. is there a way you can have your contract automatically add an item to the marketplace when we deploy it? By now, you may have figured out that if I'm asking the question, the answer is probably yes. So do you remember that constructor function in our Solidity contract? It executes one time whenever the contract is initially deployed. So that means if we call our add item function from within it and add an initial item to our smart contract, it's going to save you time and energy when developing every time you have to redeploy your contract. And I've got one last tip for you before we move on. Our React code is loaded into the server when we start the server with npm start. And if we change the code in our editor, it won't be picked up by the server unless we restart the server. Fortunately, there's a way around that, and it's called hot reloading. Hot reloading is enabled in this project, and it watches the contents of the files in our application directory, which means that every time you save one of those files, it reloads the server so that you don't have to. Well, in this video, we launched our application locally, and we learned about the components necessary for that to happen, including Ganache. If we're going to launch our marketplace to the world, though, we have to get this code off of our workstation and onto the internet.